In the Street Fighter series, Edmund Honda was known as the greatest sumo technique wrestler in all of Japan, but originally was angry with the fact that the sumo style of wrestling was belittled and even underestimated in the West. Honda then set out to prove to the world that sumo was the equal of any other method of combat, but the speculative scenario is this: is Japanese sumo viable for real-life combat? In the oldest Street Fighter games, Honda would decide to literally try and show the world the strength, history, practicality, and usefulness of sumo by challenging any fighter that he came across to a match and would try to naturally defeat them in battle. While it helped to expose the methods of sumo or Japanese-based wrestling to a wider and even international audience, it didn't have the impact across the planet as Honda desired. Instead of showing the strength of sumo to the world as a whole, he just impressed the particular fighters he came across during his travels. Honda would often venture across the world attempting to show the technique and usefulness of sumo, but it would actually have mixed results as Honda traveled so often internationally that his message of sumo wasn't exactly received well by most, and he himself would be known for the particular method of sumo fighting instead. It's actually been mentioned and theorized through discussions that the Japanese style of wrestling, sumo, is an underrated method of combat and could technically be useful in confrontational situations. An important example of lore relating to the practicality of sumo in fighting had it that Honda changed certain maneuvers and techniques of traditional sumo to fight against foreign opponents outside of Japan, and the exotic or outrageous techniques he naturally devised as a result actually kept him from attaining the highest rank of sumo, but it's commonly known that he could have easily achieved such, as further discussions had it that sumo as seen by Honda in the Street Fighter series isn't practical or even technically possible for real-life fighting. However, the real sumo-based techniques and methods of fighting can be and actually have been used in situations outside of the sumo arena. It's important to remember that sumo is an interpretation of Japanese wrestling, and modern rules for sumo have it being implemented within a circular arena, where one wrestler pushes or thrusts another wrestler out of it. As older forms of sumo had wrestlers throw each other out of the ring instead of the pushes, thrusts, shoves, or sidesteps that we witness so much from modern sumo matches. Again, sumo is a Japanese interpretation of wrestling, so the emphasis can be with throws, slams, trips, slips, and pulls. Sumo wrestlers have adopted these methods to be without clothes, as judo and jiu-jitsu users can be reliant on that initial clothing-based grip against an opponent to execute the technique. The wrestler of sumo might also fare better against multiple opponents due to themselves being trained to handle an opponent in a situation within the circle arena. Most wrestlers of sumo are overall bigger than a normal unarmed man, so they could theoretically endure somewhat more in terms of impact from punches or kicks due to their sumo training. Being thrown onto the pavement, ground, or even into the street of an urban setting can be deadly, even life-threatening, but wrestlers of sumo might be able to endure it due to themselves being constantly trained to fall onto the ground of not so safe surfaces at times. In terms of a situation without weapons, it all depends if the wrestler has enough skill to handle an inexperienced or experienced opponent, as well as the circumstances that the wrestler of sumo finds themselves in.